My team did a secret gift exchange. I got nothing. They all laughed. We thought you'd be too busy to care. So I made a list of everything I did for them, then stopped cold. Within 2 weeks, the project collapsed. And at the all hands, my manager said, I don't know what happened. I did. I've worked on this team for 3 years. Long enough to know everyone's patterns, their work habits, who checks out early every Friday, who quietly delegates everything but still gets credit, who scrambles last minute, and who leans on others to clean it up. I used to tell myself it didn't bother me. I just wanted to do good work, keep things moving, be the person people could rely on. I started there as a mid-level developer. I wasn't the loudest in meetings or the most social at company happy hours. But when things broke, I fixed them. When people missed things, I caught them. I documented things no one wanted to touch. I stayed late when needed and didn't make a scene when someone else took credit for something I quietly patched at midnight. I just kept going. Not because I didn't notice, but because I thought it would even out. Eventually, it didn't. By year 2, I was unofficially doing pieces of 4 people's jobs. I was the fallback when someone ghosted a sprint. I was the second pair of eyes for deployments. I did QA when our contractor dropped off the face of the earth. I wrote unit tests. I onboard new hires. I even kept a shared team wiki because no one else bothered updating the internal docs. I didn't expect praise, but I did think, in some small way, that people knew I was carrying weight that wasn't mine. Then came the Secret Santa. It was supposed to be a fun bonding thing, according to one of the designers. She and 2 others set it up in a Slack thread. They posted the rules, the budget $25, and a sign-up link. I clicked it, filled out the form. I got an email a few days later with my assigned name, Alex from DevOps. I didn't know him well, but I checked his LinkedIn and saw he liked puzzles, so I bought him a wooden puzzle set and a small book on logic games. I even wrapped it myself and added a card. On the day of the exchange, I walked into the break room and saw the table covered in gifts. People were already chatting, joking, eating the catered snacks. I felt a little awkward. I always do those things, but I showed up. I put Alex's gift on the pile and grabbed a soda. We were all told to sit in a circle, and gifts were passed out one by one. I waited and waited. People laughed as they opened mugs, board games, quirky t-shirts. Some people hugged. A few took selfies. One person said, you really nailed it." It kept going until finally the last gift was unwrapped. My name was never called. Nothing was handed to me. At first, I thought maybe they were saving it for the end. Maybe it was hidden behind something. Then the silence hit. People were shifting in their seats. 1 or 2 glanced over at me quickly and looked away. My manager made a face like he was trying to do the math in his head and said weakly, "Oh, huh. I guess maybe someone forgot to bring theirs." And then someone else, I think it was Brianna, one of the senior designers, laughed and said, "Honestly, we figured you'd be too busy to care." Everyone laughed. Not cruelly, just dismissively. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like I wasn't even really part of the moment. I smiled. That kind of smile where your teeth show, but your eyes don't move. I said something like "no worries" and stood up and left before the rest of them could trip over each other, trying to pretend they didn't notice. I went back to my desk, locked my screen, and just sat there. That night, I didn't go back to work. I didn't stay online late to clean up someone else's mess. Instead, I opened a blank doc. I started writing. Bullet points. Just everything I had done in the past 6 months. Not my job description, but the stuff I did beyond it. Things I wasn't being paid for. Tasks that belonged to other people, but fell to me anyway. It filled a page. Then 2. Things like deployed hotfix for bug in QA that came from Rachel's last-minute commit. Wrote onboarding doc for interns after manager forgot to schedule their training. Sat in on client call last minute because Alex didn't show. Prepped demo environment at 1 a.m. because product owner didn't remind DevOps. Every bullet felt like a slow exhale. Then I made a second list, things I would no longer do. I didn't announce it. No dramatic speech. No revenge plot. Just silence. From the next day on, I stuck to my job description. I pushed my tickets. I wrote my code. I logged off at 5 unless I had a real reason to stay. When someone sent a panicked Slack about the testing environment being down, I didn't reply. When Rachel missed another code review, I didn't ping her. When a client asked about a delayed deliverable, I forwarded the email to the person responsible and didn't follow up. It was like removing a single screw from a machine no one realized held the whole panel in place. By the end of the first week, there were warning signs. A feature demo failed. The CI/CD pipeline broke, and no one knew how to fix it. A few tickets were marked in progress for too long with no updates. The manager asked why things were slow. No one really answered. By the end of the second week, it was chaos. A big client call went sideways. Someone had committed buggy code to production. QA flagged 6 blockers in a row. Our product owner escalated it to leadership. Slack messages flew at all hours. Deadlines slipped. People panicked. Finally, my manager called an all hands. He sounded rattled. He opened the meeting with, "I don't know what's going on, but something's clearly broken here. This isn't how we operate. I need to understand what's happening." I sat there with my camera off, on mute. So did everyone else. No one said my name. No one pointed fingers. But the silence was louder than anything else. I knew what had happened. I had finally stepped back. And they all realized too late how much I'd been carrying. Not because I wanted praise. Not because I wanted revenge. Just because I was tired of being invisible. After that all-hands meeting, the tone changed. Not immediately. At first, there was just confusion. Slack got quiet for a couple of days. No jokes, no memes. People were cautious, like everyone was afraid of saying the wrong thing. But the real shift came when the finger-pointing started, quietly, indirectly. In meetings, people began attaching names to mistakes. I think Rachel was handling that, or, well, Alex was supposed to follow up on the deploy. It was subtle at first, then more obvious. I watched it all happen. No one mentioned my name. Not because they were protecting me, but because they forgot I was ever part of it. That's how invisible I had become. The project started falling behind. Leadership noticed. Deadlines were missed again. Clients were upset. Features were rolled back. Every Monday, check-in became more tense. Managers started doing one-on-ones to check morale, which meant trying to figure out who was slacking, who was burnt out, and who was about to quit. I got pulled into one with my manager, Eric. He tried to act casual. "Hey, just wanted to see how you're doing. Everything going all right?" I shrugged. "Fine." He asked if I had feedback about how the team was functioning. I said, "Not really." He stared at me for a second too long. I think he knew. He just didn't know how to say it. Over the next week, I watched as things started unraveling faster. Rachel pushed broken code to production again, only this time no one caught it before it went live. A client flagged it on a call. That client paused their contract. Everyone scrambled. No one even looked in my direction. A few days later, someone made a mistake that cost us access to a staging environment. DevOps blamed engineering. Engineering blamed DevOps. The tickets for the issue bounced back and forth like a tennis match. I didn't step in. I knew exactly how to fix it. I'd fixed it before. Quietly. But now I just watched. The mood in the team turned bitter. The fun Slack channels went silent. People stopped joking in meetings. The trust was gone. I started hearing whispers in breakouts, people saying things like, "This team used to run so much smoother last year," or "I don't know what changed." I did, but I also noticed something else. My workload didn't just decrease, it disappeared. Tasks that used to be unofficially mine weren't being reassigned. They just stopped existing. The wiki I updated weekly? Outdated now. The test suite I maintained? No longer working right. My name wasn't on those tasks, so no one picked them up. The team acted like those systems broke on their own. Like it was just bad luck. Nothing to fix, just things to survive. Meanwhile, in leadership meetings, I heard talk about restructuring. Layoffs. Reorgs. I wasn't supposed to be in those calls, but I was still invited to one or two of the larger ones. And I listened. Carefully. People started quitting. The first to go was Jonah, one of the better junior devs. He got sick of the chaos and left for a fintech company. Then DevOps lost a person. Then someone from QA. HR sent out surveys to understand workplace satisfaction. The irony almost made me laugh. Still, no one mentioned the Secret Santa. No one said anything about that day. No apology. No acknowledgement. But I remembered. I remembered every person who looked away, every person who laughed, every person who said nothing. And I wasn't done yet. 3 weeks after the collapse began, HR sent out an anonymous feedback survey. We want to understand how to make this a better workplace. They said, I didn't fill it out. I didn't need to. But something strange started happening. People started being nice to me. Overly nice. Rachel forwarded a bug ticket and wrote, not sure if this is your wheelhouse, but would love your eyes on it if you have time. Brianna, the same one who laughed at me during Secret Santa, dropped by my desk in person, which she hadn't done in over a year, and said, Hey, I always feel like you have a really level head. I was wondering if you had ideas for how we could reset the team vibe. The worst was Eric, my manager. He started using phrases like your leadership voice and we could really use your stabilizing presence right now. It was like they were suddenly remembering I existed, not because they cared, but because things were falling apart and they needed a safety net. I gave them nothing, no advice, no comfort, just silence and the bare minimum to stay within scope. Then, one Friday morning, I got a meeting invite on my calendar from the head of engineering, Claire. It was just her and me. No agenda. When I joined the call, she got right to it. I've been looking at contribution logs, meeting notes, and sprint velocity. You were holding more than half the core functionality together for most of Q3 and Q4 last year. I didn't say anything. She continued. I also noticed the drop-off. It happened all at once. It correlates with when things started breaking down. Still, I said nothing. Claire exhaled slowly. I just want to understand. Did something happen? Because if we failed you, I finally cut in. Just one line. You let them forget. I was human. She went quiet. I logged off. That weekend, I got an email from someone I never expected. Jonah, the junior dev who had left a few weeks earlier. Subject line, Can I tell you something? Inside, he wrote, I saw what they did to you. I wanted to say something, but I was new and scared. But I noticed. We all did. I only lasted this long because you helped me early on. When you stopped, I knew why. You were right to stop. Something shifted in me then. I'd assumed people either laughed or didn't care. But now I realized some were just scared. Others had followed the crowd because it was easier. No one wanted to be the one to say, Hey, this was wrong. But now they were saying it quietly, in private, one by one. I started getting other messages too. One from QA, another from someone in product. Then a contractor I'd helped 6 months earlier sent a LinkedIn message, You kept me from getting fired. Just wanted you to know I never forgot that. But the biggest twist came from HR. I got a notice that someone had filed an internal grievance, an official one, about workplace exclusion and bias. I wasn't told who filed it, but I was named not as the accused, but as the person excluded. That hit harder than I expected. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't public. But it meant someone else had finally said it out loud. Still, the people who laughed, the ones who forgot me, were still walking around like nothing happened. And I wasn't finished yet. After the HR grievance surfaced, things started getting weird. Not louder, quieter, more strategic, controlled. I wasn't called into any meetings, but I noticed how conversations shifted when I joined. People who used to ignore me in Slack suddenly tagged me in group threads. Eric started CCNG me on status updates like I was part of leadership. I wasn't, but I let it happen. And then I noticed something else. They were trying to rewrite the past. A week after the grievance was acknowledged, Eric gave a presentation to the department. It was one of those lessons learned retrospectives full of vague buzzwords like communication breakdowns, team cohesion, shared accountability. No mention of names. No mention of how everything fell apart exactly 2 weeks after a certain team member was left out in a public, humiliating way. But what caught my attention was this line. We had a hard Q4, but we've always been a team that looks out for each other, and I know we can get back to that. They weren't owning it. They were painting over it, rewriting it as some fluke dip in performance, erasing the fact that someone me had been made invisible, and when I stepped away, the machine fell apart. That made me realize something. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Scared of what it looked like. Scared someone might connect the dots between the drop in performance and how they'd treated the one person who kept things together. HR wasn't trying to fix anything, they were trying to contain it. I didn't respond, but I started preparing. I pulled every email I could find showing what I had taken on, every GitHub commit, every Slack message where I stepped in, patched something, followed up. I organized it all into a timeline, not to present it, but to own it, to take back the story they were quietly trying to erase. And I watched them fumble. Rachel missed another deploy and blamed QA. QA fired back with logs. Brianna forgot to invite DevOps to a product review, and the whole pipeline was delayed 3 more days. A junior dev made a small mistake and got chewed out in a public thread by the same people who used to lean on me for cover. Everything they used to dump on me now had nowhere to land, and they were turning on each other. Then the most unexpected thing happened. Claire, the head of engineering, scheduled another one-on-one. This time, it wasn't casual. I've been reviewing your output over the past year, she said. I think we haven't been fair to you. I'd like to talk about carving out a new role, something more senior. I just nodded. I didn't smile. I didn't thank her. I didn't ask for details, because I knew what this was. Not a promotion. Not recognition. It was insulation. They wanted to raise me up now that they'd realized they couldn't replace what I gave for free, for years. They wanted to keep me from walking away. They wanted to make sure no one outside the company ever heard the full story. But I wasn't walking away. Not yet. Because the people who'd laughed that day, the ones who made the joke, the ones who let me sit there empty-handed in front of a table full of gifts and smiles, they hadn't felt it yet. But they would. I didn't take the promotion. Claire followed up 3 times. Each time, the offer got bigger, more title, more money, more influence. But they never said what they were really offering: control, a muzzle, a way to spin the story so they wouldn't have to admit what they did or what I let happen after. So I declined, politely, no emotion. Thanks, but I'm looking at other opportunities. And I was, because for the first time in 3 years, I finally put myself first. I had the receipts. I had the emails, the Jira tickets, the Slack threads, the Git logs, the deployment records, all of it. A full picture of the unpaid labor I'd been doing. And the sudden silence that followed when I stopped. I reached out to Jonah, the junior dev who'd left. He got me in touch with his team lead at his new company. We had coffee. Then we had another meeting. Then I had an offer, better salary, better culture, fully remote, no hero complex needed. Just boundaries and respect. But before I left, I did something else. I printed out 2 copies of the document I'd been building, the timeline, the workload breakdown, all of it. One went to HR. No commentary. Just a header that said, "For context." The second went to the VP of engineering. I left it on his desk in a sealed envelope the day before my exit interview. No one knew I had access to his floor. But I'd been helping with cross-department integration for over a year. That's the thing about doing invisible work. You end up knowing where everything lives. My official resignation email was short. 2 lines. Effective 2 weeks from today. Thank you for the opportunity. Eric replied in less than 10 minutes. Can we talk? I ignored it. During my final week, no one spoke to me directly. Not the way they used to. There were whispers, of course. Slack threads I was no longer tagged in. Meetings I was excluded from. But no one brought up Secret Santa. No one said anything about the moment this all started. So, on my last day, I sent one final message. To the whole team. Public Slack channel. When someone quietly keeps things from falling apart and you treat them like a background function, don't act surprised when everything breaks without them. Then I logged off. I heard from Jonah a week later. He said Eric had been reassigned and that Brianna was under review for multiple complaints. Apparently, someone in HR, probably whoever filed that first grievance, had escalated everything after I left. The VP started asking questions. They opened up an investigation. Suddenly, everyone was revisiting past behavior. And here's the part that really hit. The product I'd helped build, the one I'd held together, had been shelved indefinitely. After I left, no one could make the next release work. Clients pulled out. Leadership lost faith. All the momentum we had was gone. 3 years of quiet labor, gone in 2 months. They tried to fix it. They tried to patch the hole. They even reached out once to ask if I'd consider consulting. I didn't respond. I'm in a better place now. I work with people who respect my time, my boundaries, and my contributions. No more late-night fixes. No more invisible glue. And I still think about that day. The laughter. The emptiness. That moment when I realized how little they saw me. They thought I wouldn't care. They thought I'd be too busy to notice. They were right about one thing. I was too busy. Too busy quietly building the entire foundation they stood on. And when I stepped away, I didn't burn down. I just let gravity do the rest.